We all have jewelry, coins, silver pieces, silver flatware laying around the house. But how do you know if it's valuable gold and silver treasure? Hi, I'm David Kaz, president of DMK Metal. With this presentation, I'd like to help you identify your gold and silver treasure. So what are the type of items you have around the house that could be gold and silver? Well, jewelry, first and foremost, is the most common type of items that are gold and silver. But you might also have gold watches. You have flatware, tea sets, serving pieces. If you have old crowns, bridges, or fillings laying around, they could be good dental gold. Coins and bullion. How do you know what coins are actually gold and silver? You might have other items like money clips, pens, picture frames, old hairbrushes, shoehorns. There's a lot of things that were primarily made out of silver that you may have inherited, and you're just not sure. Are they good quality silver or are they worthless? All right, so let's jump into how you identify your gold and silver. Well, first thing you want to do is get yourself a very powerful magnet. And you can get a powerful magnet on Amazon. You can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy a magnet. You want a very strong one. Gold and silver do not stick to a magnet. So here is an example, are two different necklaces. And as you can see in the middle photograph, one of the necklaces sticks very strongly to my magnet. But on the right, you can see a gap between the necklace and the magnet. Now, this does not guarantee that the item is in fact gold. It just means you've got a fighting chance with that item. Now, here you see two separate earrings. The earring on the left, there's a gap between the magnet and the earring, means you got a chance that it is gold. And then on the right, you see the earring sticking very strongly to the magnet. Now, I know for sure that's not gold. Another telltale sign is if you have a gold earring, but the post is silver, it's not gold. A good quality gold earring will also have a gold post with it. Now, more important than a magnet is getting a very powerful loupe or a magnifying glass. And again, go to Amazon. You can get all kinds of different options there. You can go to Michael's, Hobby Lobby, and get yourself a magnifying glass or loupe. Now, what are you looking for? That's the most important thing. Well, with gold, let's think about, go back to grade school. We'll rewind the clock and think about fractions. Well, with gold, the denominator is 24. So if you've got 14 karat gold, for example, if you divide 14 by 24, you will get 0.585 or 58.5%. So gold is 58.5, or 14 karat gold is 58.5% gold. If you have 10 karat, you do 10 divided by 24, it gives you 0.417. So 10 karat gold is 41.7% gold. The other 59% could be silver, copper, nickel, other base metals mixed in with the gold. 18 karat gold, 18 divided by 24 is 0.75. So 18 karat gold is 75% gold. If you're from India or you know anybody from India, they have 22 karat gold. 22 divided by 24 gives you 0.917. And then pure gold is where the numerator and the denominator are both 24. So 24 karat gold is 100% gold. All right, so when you're looking at jewelry primarily, you're looking at for the 10K or 417. That tells you it's 10 karat gold. For 14 karat gold, which is the most common gold in the United States, you're looking for 14K or 585. Now in Eastern Europe on 14 karat gold, you'll actually see 583. So if you do pull out your phone or your calculator and you do 14 divided by 24, it is actually 0.583. So in Eastern Europe, Czechoslovakia, Russia, Yugoslavia, other Eastern European countries, Poland, they normally market 583. But Western countries market 585. I don't know why, but 583 is actually more accurate, but 585 is more common. Dental gold is usually 16 karat, but it's not marked anything. So if you've got an old crown bridge or filling, it's probably, well, it's going to be anywhere from 14 to 18 karat gold. It's very good gold. 18 karat gold is going to be marked 750 or 18K. Now, if you see that image with the white gold that says 750, white gold and yellow gold are exactly the same gold. White gold is where you mix gold with nickel, and we've had white gold for over 100 years, but it is the same exact quality, the same amount, same percent of gold. So if you have white gold, it's exactly the same as yellow gold. 22 karat might be marked 22K or 917. The only place they have 24 karat gold that I've seen is out of Asia, primarily China and South Korea, might be marked 24K or 999. Now, finding the gold, those numbers and letters is very hard, especially on bracelets and necklaces. Rings are easier, but here you can see a variety of bracelet and necklace clasps. Then that's where you're going to find the markings. And if you look at that picture second from the left, you see the 585 on that little piece that opens and closes when you put on your necklace. So almost impossible to see that even with a jeweler's loop, but that just shows you how small these markings are on your jewelry. The middle picture, you'll see the 14KT on a oval shaped tag. Usually that oval shaped tag is a good sign, usually means that it is good quality gold. That serpentine clasp with 999, that comes from China. And then the clasp that looks like an S is a 22 karat. That usually tells me that something is from India. Again, very small, hard to find. That's why you need a magnifying glass or a loop to identify your own items. Now, the bad news is when you have something that's gold plated, because gold plated is worthless, but gold filled actually has gold in it. So if you see 1/20th 14K or 1/10 12K, that tells you what percent of gold is in that item. So if 14 karat gold is 58.5% gold, like we talked about before, 1/20th of that, so if you divide 58 by 20, you're going to have about 2.5, 3% of that item is gold. So gold filled is not worthless. There's going to be 2 to 5% of it is gold. Gold plated, however, is worthless. So it's bad news when you have something gold plated. Now, silver is trickier to identify sometimes than gold. If something is sterling, it's going to be marked sterling or 925. Sterling silver is 92.5% silver. The other 7.5% is copper. So when something's sterling, that's the good stuff. It's going to say sterling or 925. But really, any number 800 or above means silver. So in the United States, since the 1870s, anything sterling needs to be stamped sterling or 925. But items bought in Europe, maybe you inherited some old flatware from Germany, from Denmark, from Sweden, from France. You're looking for a number 800 or above. And that tells you how many parts per thousand of that item is, how many parts per thousand is silver. So if it's 800 parts per thousand silver, that means it's 80% silver. So not as good as sterling, but still really good. It could be marked 813H, which I believe is from Finland. If it's 835, 900, 950, those are all good. You're also looking for hallmarks. So again, in the United States, it had to be marked sterling or 925, but in Europe, you might have a side profile of a walking lion. You might have a panther head. You might have a king or a queen. You might even have a panther with a crown on its head. You might have the word coin. Now, coin means it's 90% sterling or silver. So anything marked coin is 90% silver, or if it's marked 900, that means it's coin silver. It's 90%. If you have items from India, now India has pure silver items. They even have pots and pans that are made of pure silver. And if you flip them over, they might actually have the word pure. They might have the word silver as a standalone, or they might have the word or the number 100. And that's primarily from India that I've seen pure silver items. So here are those hallmarks we were talking about. So you can see here various versions of what's known as the walking lion. It's usually a full body side profile of a lion. He could be facing forward. He could be looking out at you. Could be more of a stick figure lion. Could be a full, formed, heavy maned lion. But that lion is really what you want to see on items, primarily from England. We'll have the walking lion. Now, there's other hallmarks too. You've got the maker's mark. So where it says CHJNC, that's the actual silver manufacturer's hallmark or logo. Then you can see a panther head here on some of them. You can see kings and queens. The letter that you see where you see that N or the J or the E, that letter N in that font style within that shape that almost looks like a Pac-Man character, that tells you the year of the item. So every silversmith in London in 1852, let's say, needed to use an N of that font style within that shape. The next year, 1853, they would do an O in that font style within that shape. And then it usually didn't go the full alphabet, year over year. But, the silversmiths agreed on what the new font style would look like and what the new shape it would be formed in to tell the year of the item. Now, you might have laying around the house. A lot of us do. And definitely these are things the kids and the grandkids do not want. And they're called sterling weighted or sterling reinforced. These old candlestick holders, for sure, we know the grandkids don't want them. If it says sterling weighted or sterling reinforced, it's a very thin, almost aluminum foil layer of sterling around a chunk of cement. And there's also a metal post inside there. So you can see I weigh the candlestick. It weighs about 9.3 troy ounces. I strip off that sterling. And then when I weigh the sterling scrap, it's about an ounce. So when you have sterling weighted items, they're going to be anywhere from 10 to 30% of the weight would be sterling. Candlesticks are closer to 10%. But if you have dishes where there's a big sterling amount on top, but the weighting is on the bottom, that could be more like 30% sterling. Now, just like gold plating is bad news, silver plating is even worse news. So silver plate is really not worth anything. The base metal underneath, like copper, could be worth more than just that very microscopic electroplated layer of silver on top of a base metal. So it might say EP, electroplated. EPNS is electroplated nickel silver. EPBM is electroplated base metal. It might say silver over copper. Now, you might see the word silver and get excited, but if it then says silver over copper, you might as well lose your enthusiasm right then and there, because that just means it's silver plated, unfortunately. It could say triple plated, quadruple plated. Even if it's quintuple plated, it's still plated and pretty much worthless. You might see community. You'll see A1, A2. You might see kind of a image that looks either like a dragon or a unicorn or a horse. And that is, again, a sign that means that it is plated. If it's got a very rainbow tarnish, it looks almost rainbow colored and blackish and rainbow, that usually means plated. So both plated and sterling tarnish, just plated tends to look a little bit different with a rainbow effect type to it. If you see it, you'll know it. All right, so what about coins and bullion? Well, most countries around the world had gold and silver coins. And the US, up until 1965, the dimes, quarters, halves, and silver dollars were 90% silver, 10% copper. Investors would call this junk silver, although junk makes it sound bad. So a lot of investors also call it constitutional silver or constitutional money, because the Constitution lays out very clearly that the United States was only supposed to have gold and silver as our money. So before 1965, the dimes, quarters, halves, and silver dollars were 90% silver. Now, we stopped making silver dollars in 1935 and started again in 1971 with Eisenhower's head on the silver dollar, but it wasn't silver. The only silver Eisenhower's were proof silvers that you got from the US Mint, and those were 40% silver. So those would usually be in a sealed plastic holder. Now, a couple of anomalies from 1965 through 1970, half dollars were actually 40% silver. So there was no silver in nickels or dimes or quarters after 1964, but the half dollars, the Kennedy halves from 65 through 70 were 40%. Any Kennedy half 71 to present, though, has zero silver. Now, another anomaly were nickels. The only time nickels had silver in the United States was 1942 to 1945. We needed nickel for artillery and for tanks during World War II. So they threw this worthless silver into the nickels, but now those worthless nickels are worth, quite a bit, a few dollars a piece. Up until 1933, in addition to silver coins, we also had gold coins. So we at one time had $1 coin, $2 coin, $3, $2.50, $5, $10, $20. The most common, though, are $2.50, $5, $10, and $20 gold coins. And they were 90% gold and 10% copper. And a $20 gold coin had very close to an ounce of gold. A $10 gold coin had very close to half an ounce. A $5 coin, a quarter ounce. A $2.50 gold coin, an eighth of an ounce. So it made a lot of sense from the weighting of the gold itself. Now, in 1986, the US Mint started creating gold and silver eagles. So the gold eagle has 1 troy ounce of gold, and the silver eagle has 1 troy ounce of silver. And if you look at that picture on the right, the gold eagle has the same exact design as the last $20 gold coin, and that was known as the St. Gaudens. That's who the designer was. And it's the same design on the current gold eagle. And then the silver eagle has the same design as the Walking Liberty half that we had from the 19 teens up until the 40s. But you'll also notice that the gold eagle is half the size of the silver eagle. That's because gold is double the density of silver. So same 1 ounce, it's just the gold is so much heavier than the silver, it's half the size of the silver. Now, around the world, other countries have sovereign coins, just like the eagle that we have here in the United States. They also had coins that they minted. Even Cuba and Russia, before they went communist, had gold and silver coins. Today, these are known as sovereign coins made for investors. So in the United States, we have eagles. In Canada, we have maple leafs. In South Africa, we have Krugerrands. Krugerrands are really the gold coins that most Americans bought when gold became legal to buy again in 1975. So in South Africa, they have the gold and silver Krugerrand. In China, they have the gold and silver panda. Austria, the Philharmonic. In Mexico, it's the Libertad. In Australia, the kangaroo. And Great Britain, the Britannia. Now, in addition, you might have laying around the house, and this is more common that you might not know these have value, but they would be rounds and bars. So there are companies like the Franklin Mint that made rounds. They could be 100% silver. They could be sterling silver rounds. And they might have a baseball player or a president or, you know, a religious figure or Santa Claus or something on it. And a round is something that's not truly a coin. So it does not have a dollar denomination on it, but it's usually a set amount of gold or silver. And it'll say on it, it's 1 troy ounce of silver, or 1 ounce of gold, or 1 gram of gold, whatever the case may be. And rounds and bars could be as small as 1 gram bar of gold, very small, but still worth, you know, quite a bit of money when gold is worth thousands of dollars per ounce. You have 1/10 ounce rounds and bars. You've got 1/4 ounce, 1 ounce, 10 ounce. Now, if you are a futures trader on the commodity exchange and you buy futures in silver, and you want the silver, the physical silver delivered to you, that's called a COMEX bar. And it's a 1,000 ounce bar, weighs 72 ounces. So that's a very, very heavy bar. But again, if you have an uncle or a grandfather or dad who was a trader on the commodity exchange, you might have sitting around the house a 1,000 ounce bar of silver. They're out there. All right, so that gives you some basics. There's, of course, much more to learn and share about gold and silver. But if you've got things like flatware, you've got jewelry, you've got coins laying around the house, at least now you have the basics. But you can call or text or email me anytime to ask me questions about the items that you own. And I can tell you usually pretty well if that's gold and silver. So good luck doing some treasure hunting, and contact me anytime. Thank you.